The courtroom fell silent as the disheveled man in worn-out jeans and a faded jacket approached the bench, clutching a crumpled folder against his chest. Judge Patricia Morrison barely glanced up from her paperwork, her manicured nails tapping impatiently against the mahogany desk. She had seen dozens of cases that morning, and this custody hearing was just another item on her overcrowded docket. The man's scuffed work boots squeaked against the polished floor, and she couldn't help but wrinkle her nose at his appearance. If you stay with me until the end of this story, you'll witness one of the most powerful moments of justice ever seen in an American courtroom, a moment that will restore your faith in the system and remind you why we should never judge a book by its cover. And if this story touches your heart the way it touched mine, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel, because we bring you real stories about real people that will inspire you every single day. Marcus Webb stood before the bench with his shoulders squared despite the exhaustion etched into every line of his face. His hands trembled slightly as he opened the folder, revealing photographs of his two children, Emma and Jake, ages 7 and 9. He had been fighting for custody of his kids for 8 months now, ever since his ex-wife Rachel had decided that her new life in California with her wealthy boyfriend was more important than the family she had built in their small Pennsylvania town. Marcus worked 2 jobs, one as a mechanic during the day and another stocking shelves at a warehouse 3 nights a week, just to keep the small house they lived in and put food on the table. His children were his entire world, and the thought of losing them felt like someone was slowly tearing his heart from his chest. Judge Morrison finally looked up, her expression one of barely concealed irritation. She had graduated from Harvard Law, came from a family of prestigious attorneys, and had been appointed to the bench at the young age of 42. Her courtroom was known for efficiency, for moving cases along quickly, and she prided herself on not getting bogged down in emotional displays. She glanced at Marcus with the kind of look that people in positions of power sometimes give to those they consider beneath them, a look that said she had already made up her mind about who he was and what he deserved. Marcus began to speak, his voice rough from lack of sleep but steady with conviction. He explained how he had been the primary caregiver for Emma and Jake since they were babies, how he had been the one to wake up in the middle of the night when they had nightmares, how he had learned to braid Emma's hair by watching YouTube videos, how he had coached Jake's little league team despite never having played baseball himself. He talked about the science fair projects they had worked on together at the kitchen table, the pancake breakfasts every Sunday morning, the way they would all curl up on their second-hand couch and read books together before bed. His voice cracked when he described how Emma had cried herself to sleep every night for the first month after Rachel left, asking why mommy didn't love them anymore. Judge Morrison cut him off mid-sentence. Her voice was sharp and dismissive as she shuffled through the papers in front of her. She pointed out that his ex-wife now had a stable home with her new partner, a successful real estate developer who could provide private schools, tutors, and opportunities that Marcus could never afford. She noted that Marcus's work schedule was erratic, that he had no family support in the area since his parents had passed away years ago, and that he was relying on a neighbor to watch the children when he worked nights. The judge's tone made it clear that she found his circumstances less than ideal, that she questioned whether a man working 2 blue-collar jobs could possibly provide the kind of life these children deserved. Then she said something that would echo through that courtroom and change everything that followed. She actually laughed, a short, dismissive sound that cut through the air like a knife. She looked at Marcus over her reading glasses and said that perhaps he should focus on getting his own life together before trying to play both mother and father to his children. She suggested that children, especially a young girl, needed a mother's influence, needed stability and structure that his chaotic schedule simply couldn't provide. She said that love wasn't enough, that good intentions didn't pay for college or provide health insurance or ensure a bright future. Marcus felt something break inside him. He had faced so much over the past year, had worked himself to the bone, had sacrificed sleep and social life and any semblance of personal happiness, all for his children. He had endured Rachel's betrayal with as much grace as he could muster, had tried to shield Emma and Jake from the worst of it, had never spoken badly about their mother despite how much she had hurt them all. But this moment, this casual dismissal of everything he had done and everything he was, felt like a blow he couldn't absorb. His hands shook as he gripped the edge of the defendant's table, and for a moment, everyone in the courtroom thought he might simply walk away. But Marcus Webb was not a man who walked away from his children. He took a deep breath, reached into his jacket pocket, and pulled out his phone. The bailiff stepped forward, ready to remind him that electronic devices weren't permitted during proceedings, but Marcus held up one hand. His voice, when he spoke, was quiet but carried a weight that made everyone in the room lean forward to hear. He said that he understood the judge had already made her decision, that he understood how the world worked, how people like him were often invisible to people like her. But he wanted to show her something before she signed away his rights to the two people who meant more to him than his own life. He pulled up a video on his phone and asked permission to approach the bench. Judge Morrison, clearly annoyed but perhaps curious despite herself, waved him forward with an impatient gesture. Marcus pressed play, and suddenly the courtroom was filled with the sound of children's laughter. The video showed Emma's recent birthday party, not at some fancy venue but in their small backyard. Marcus had strung up lights he'd found at a yard sale and spent 3 days building a treehouse from scrap lumber he'd collected from construction sites. The video showed Emma's face, radiant with joy, as she climbed into her new treehouse for the first time. It showed Jake helping his dad hammer in the final nail, the pride on both their faces evident even through the phone's small screen. Marcus played another video, this one from Emma's school talent show. She was singing a song she had written herself, a simple melody about a dad who was her superhero even though he couldn't fly or had no cape to wear. The lyrics talked about strong hands that could fix anything, about bedtime stories and Saturday morning adventures, about feeling safe even when the world seemed scary. In the audience, barely visible in the corner of the frame, was Marcus, tears streaming down his face as he watched his daughter perform. There was video after video, moments that most people would consider ordinary but that represented everything Marcus had built with his children. Jake's soccer games where Marcus was always on the sidelines, even when he'd worked a double shift the night before. Emma's school play where she played a tree and Marcus had helped her make her costume from painted cardboard and wire hangers. A quiet afternoon where both children were doing homework at the kitchen table while Marcus prepared dinner, the easy comfort of a family that had learned to be everything to each other. Judge Morrison watched in silence, and something in her expression began to shift. Perhaps it was the genuine joy in those children's faces, or the way they looked at their father with complete trust and adoration, or maybe it was seeing what love actually looked like when it was lived out in daily sacrifice rather than expressed in dollar amounts and material advantages. The courtroom had gone completely still, and even the court reporter had stopped typing, watching the small screen with everyone else. Marcus played one final video, and this one was different. It had been recorded just a few days earlier, after Rachel's lawyer had filed the motion that brought them to court that day. Marcus had sat both children down and tried to explain what was happening in terms they could understand. The video showed Emma, her small face serious beyond her years, saying that she didn't want to live in California with mommy's new family. She said that this was her home, that her friends were here, that daddy understood her in a way nobody else did. Jake, older and trying to be brave, said that if the judge made them go, he would count down the days until he was old enough to choose for himself, and then he would come right back home because home wasn't a place, it was wherever Dad was. The video ended with both children hugging Marcus, and the audio picked up Emma whispering that it would be okay, that the judge would see that they belonged together, that nobody could split them up because they were a team. Marcus's voice, thick with emotion, promising them that he would fight with everything he had, that he would never stop fighting for them, that they were his whole world and nothing else mattered. When the video ended, Marcus looked up at Judge Morrison with eyes that held no hope, only a quiet resignation. He said that he knew the law often favored mothers, that he knew his financial situation wasn't ideal, that he knew he couldn't compete with private schools and vacation homes and all the things Rachel's new life could offer,